Yeah, good morning and welcome to Daily Double, part of the Greater Yeshiva YouTube. We're doing Mesechus Challah, Perek Daled, Mishnah Zayin and Ches. Mishnah Zayin says, Yisrael shayu arisin la'ovdei chachavim b'Syria. The land belongs in Syria. Let's just say Syria is Syria. Apparently David, in his time, he conquered Syria, but Kivush Yachid, the Gemara said of Azar, is not a kivush. It didn't really belong. Syria is not technically part of Eretz Israel. We'll see maybe it is part of Eretz Israel because the only Mitzrayim were kovish, but only Bavel were not kovish. So it's a machlokes in the Gemara. Kitcher Rishona, Kitcher L'Shaista, the Kisha Asadava, or Kisha Asadava. When Yoshua gave out the land, does that mean it has Kedusha Israel forever, or only if it was recaptured, retaken when they came back from Bavel after Nebuchadnezzar, after Achashverosh, and they retook the lands? Then it has Kedusha Eretz Israel according to everybody. So, he hired workers, the non-Jew who owned land in Syria. He hired Jewish workers, and part of being an artist, a sharecropper, you get part of what you worked for. He says that Midarabanan, even though it's not part of Eretz Israel, even though technically maybe Syria was considered part of Eretz Israel in time of Yeshua, but the time of when Ezra was not considered part of Israel, so therefore it's Potter, it's Machayev, Ma'asos Shvi, it's part of Israel Midarabanan. Gamliel Potter, and he says it's not. Gamliel Omer Shtei Chalas B'Suria. Gamliel consistently says the same thing, since Syria is not considered part of Israel. Kitcha Rishon, Kitcha L'Shaitza, V'lo Kitcha L'Asad Lavo. So therefore, you have to take off two chalas in Syria. Now, why two chalas in Syria? Because here we're talking about, the Mishnah are talking about when there's Tyra, and when they were Shomer, Tuma, and Tara. And people could become Torah with the Paraduma. So in Syria, Chutz La'aretz has Tuma, no matter what. Always has Tuma. Tuma is Chutz La'aretz. So he considers it to be Chutz La'aretz. So there's Tuma over there. So therefore it's Tuma. So the first Challah he took off comes Tameh. And we know Challah is Tameh can't be by Kohanim. So if he would say I'll take off one Challah, then people would think that there's no mitzvah of Challah. So therefore you take off a second Challah to remind people they shouldn't forget about the mitzvah of Challah. Even though technically it's part of Chutz La'aretz and it's Tumas Eretz Ha'amim, Tumas of Goyish land, and therefore you can't. The first Challah can't be by the Kohen. The second one is just your mafresh it. Also has to be burnt also, but you do a second one to shouldn't forget about Challah. Lezer Omer Challah Achas. Lezer says no, it's part of Eretz Israel, so therefore only one Challah. And there's no Tumas Eretz Ha'amim. Achsu Kula Shor Gamliel, the Kula Shor Lezer. First, they took the Kula on Gamliel. Right, it's Potter and Shmuas and Ma'ashos, and the Kula of Lezer, they only took off one Challah, right? After they realized, it says in various Gemaras, in Mesechus Eruvin on Daf Gimel, that someone who does like two opinions, he's making like this opinion, making like this opinion, you're not consistent, you consider Russia, so then they pass from Gamliel, it's considered not technically part of Eretz Israel, therefore they take two Challahs off, and it's Potter and Shmuas and Ma'ashos. Ched, Gamliel is a long Mishnah. Gamliel Omer Shalosh Aratzos L'Challah. There's three different sections of Eretz Israel in terms of Hilchos Challah. Eretz Israel about Kaziv. Eretz Israel, I mean, at least the whole portion of Eretz Israel, Kaziv. Kaziv is a piece of land on the northern border of Eretz Israel, the upper Galilee, near Akko. Challah Achas. That's all part of Eretz Israel, so that's Challah, one Challah. That's part of Eretz Israel. Mechziv ve'ad Hanar ve'ad Amana. Basically, you can extend in two directions, outside the borders of Eretz Israel. Technically, maybe part of Lebanon. The Nar, I guess, would be part of, I don't know, the river next to the Mediterranean. Amana would be maybe Amman, Jordan. So that's considered to be that. This was the land that had Kitcha Rishona, but not Kitcha Shniya. So therefore, Shtei Chalos. You take off two Chalos. Achas the Or, Achas the Kohen. One, like we said in the previous Mishnah, we possibly Rabban Gamliel, that you have to take off two Chalas. Technically, it's Tameh, Eretz Ha'amim. One goes to the fire, and one to the Kohen. We shouldn't forget, obviously, the Kohen can't eat it because it's Tameh. Shal Or Yesh Lashir, Shal Kohen Ein Lashir. Technically, we're going to explain this further in Ian Mitzion, that even though Kedusha Rishona, we paskin Kitcha L'Shaisa, V'lo Kitcha L'Asad Lavo. In this respect, there is a certain aspect that is Kitcha L'Asad Lavo. I'm going to explain this, how the Mishnah demonstrates this. So this is what the Mishnah is saying. Or the one that's tameh and then you have to burn it, yesh lashir. We treat it like challah. You take off 1/24th, or a nachdom, a baker takes 1/48th. Shal kohen ein lashir. The second one is just you shouldn't forget about it, so you give. It doesn't have to be a share. A teeny bit you give to the kohen. Min hanar va'aramana v'lifnim. If you extend further out, I mean, you go into the Mediterranean, or you cross over the Mediterranean to Greece or something like that, or you go further than Amman, Jordan, shtei chalos, then you take off 2 chalas, achas arbach as a kohen. Similarly, 1 for a kohen. You shouldn't forget about it. Like says, shalor ein lashir. However, the difference is over here, the main one is the one you give to the kohen, or the one you burn can be even a little bit. Shal kohen yesh lashir. The one belonging to the kohen has a shir. I'm going to explain the difference between these 2 cases and Iyam Mitzion. Tful Yom, Ochla, one of the other halachas, right, when it's considered completely out of Eretz Yisrael, where there was no even Kedusha Rishona, right, a Tful Yom could eat it. Tful Yom someone went to the mikvah. So even though they can't eat Trumas and Meiser until Herav Shemesh, they allowed him to eat it because technically it's part of Chutz La'aretz, and really there's, it's not even technically Chayiv and Challah. That's the big Chiddush over here. Yossi Omer Eino Sarach Tvila. Yossi says you don't even need Tvila. Tanakam holds Tvul Yom. You have to at least, talking about a Baal carryover here who has to go to the mikvah. So Yossi is willing to make it even without Tvila. Asur L'Zavim L'Zavos L'Nidol L'Yodos. All these people that are Tameh, right? They also can't eat it. Technically, since it's really never a Kedusha Rishon, it's not Challah at all. Challah has to at least have Kedusha Rishon, we'll see. Whether Challah is Chayiv and Chutz La'aretz is a discussion. We'll talk about that in Iyam Mitzion. So technically, you can eat it with a Zar al Shulchan. You could eat it with a Yisrael al Shulchan. The Kohen can eat it. The intent is to call Kohen, give it to any Kohen, even a Kohen Ha'aretz, according to the Rambam, because technically, it's not really Challah at all. I'm going to explain this more in Iyam Mitzion coming up next.